Namo Namaha friends, I am RRK. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things bookish. As you guys might have noticed, this is my first in-person video. I usually do PPT style videos with voiceovers, but I wanted to try something out that's a bit more personable from now on. Initially, my plan was to do something along the lines of podcasting where I will do some videos with PPTs or pictures and then give voiceovers to that. I wanted something more interactive and social. I started off writing reviews on Goodreads and blogs, but it just was not cutting it for me because it's not very interactive. So that is why I started this YouTube channel. But after a while, even I started feeling weird watching the strangely disembodied videos. Finally, I decided no, let's do the in-person video. How hard could it be? But then there is this one problem. Facing the camera has always been a kind of a phobia for me. I don't like the camera and the camera doesn't like me back. So it's a very hard thing for me to do, especially sit in front of the camera and talk to you guys. But my passion for my books and my need to feel welcome in the Kish community has won over my fear of the camera. So long story short, all I am saying is that from now on, I will try to do more in-person videos where I talk about the usual bookish things. I will be talking about book reviews, I'll be doing bookish challenges, and I'm not so sure if I will be going the vlog route yet because, as I said, I'm very scared of the camera. But I will definitely do recommendation review videos. I will also do challenge videos. So I hope you guys will like my content and will support in my fledgling YouTube channel. So now that I'm done with the long-winded intro, let me get into the meat of the video, which is the review of Captive Prince Trilogy. Now, Captive Prince Trilogy is a male romance fantasy series by C.S. Pacat, who is an Australian author. I didn't know anything about this trilogy, to be honest. The only thing I knew was that in social media, this evoked extreme reactions among people. Some people hated it so much that they couldn't stop criticizing it. And some people were so much in love with this that there are fan fictions and they cannot stop gushing about this series. So I just wanted to check out which spectrum I fall in within this fandom. And I also wanted something different. Once I finished reading the first book, there's no doubt which part of the spectrum I was in. I couldn't stop gushing about this book. As the review progresses, you will see what my thoughts and feelings about this series really is. But know that I finished this series within a span of 1.5 days. Now that's not a great thing because the first two books are only 250 pages each. But you must know that I haven't binge read a series since Harry Potter. So that must tell you how interesting this series was for me. But before you rush to your nearest bookstore and mass buy the entire series, please go in knowing the content warnings for this series, which include sexual slavery, implied pedophilia, physical abuse, rape, non-consensual sex, war crimes. It has almost all of the content warnings that you might need in a series. Now let's start with the synopsis of the Captive Prince trilogy. So as you know, the first book is called The Captive Prince. It starts off with Damon, the Prince of Ichilus, being sent as a sexual slave to Prince Lauren, who is the Prince of Veric. Now, Damon was the one who killed Lauren's elder brother in a war. So now he needs to ensure that he's not being identified as Damon till he can manage to escape from the enemy kingdom. This seems like a very straightforward story, but trust me, it is not. It is filled with political strife and machinations which are amazing. Okay, so the second book, Princess Gambit, starts off right off the bat from where the author had left off in the last book. So much so that it may seem as the continuation of the last book's chapter rather than the sequel. Apparently, the first two books were released as a web novels initially, which were later published as novels along with the third book. That explains why people love the third book more than the first two ones. But personally, for me, the first book is the favorite because it was quite unique. It was nothing like I have ever read before. So I love the first book much, much more than the rest of the two. With each book in the series, my love for the series actually decreases. But still, the series is awesome. Personally, I liked the first book better than the other two. Now, King's Rising was a very satisfying end to the entire series. Now, this particular section is a spoilery free section. I cannot go into the finer details of the plot here, but trust me, in the spoilers section, I will definitely unleash all of my thoughts about this series there. Since I binge read this entire series, I will be deviating a little from my usual style of reviewing the books. Usually, I review individual books or I cover them in my wrap up for that particular month. This time, I will be reviewing this entire series because trust me, if you like the specific brand of writing and storytelling this author has, you will definitely not want to take a break from that first book. You will probably want to complete that entire series as immediately as possible. So let me start off with what I liked about this series. First is obviously the characters. The characterization in this book is honestly top notch. I mean, I could imagine the characters so vividly in my mind. I was obsessed with both Damon and Lauren, especially Damon for his moral fiber, and Lauren, obviously, his incredible smarts. What else? I must say though, I was not a huge fan of the side characters. I neither hated or liked them, they were just props to the story. For the first time in my reading experience, I actually didn't mind that. I usually mind if the characters are very shallow or if the side characters have not been given enough importance, then that kind of bothers me. But frankly speaking, in this series, that didn't bother me because Damon and Lauren was such luminary characters that I didn't even care about the rest of the characters. For that matter, in the first book, there was a character, I don't remember his name, he was a sexual slave from Damon's country. And every time he came on the page, I was like, okay, let's get on with it. I don't want to read about you. I want to read more about Damon and Lauren. So that was the kind of obsession I had for the main characters. Second thing is, usually in other novels, the side characters are usually so good that you kind of root for them more than the protagonists, but that didn't happen in this series. In this series, it was all the way Damon and Lauren for me. Second thing I liked was the story. I realized that I'm a sucker for monarchical stories. I enjoy the concept of kings, royals, their petty dramas, their moral dilemmas, etc., because it is so far removed from my real life. I also enjoyed the story because it reminded me a little of the Raj Dharma practiced by the Indian monarchy of the yore, where a king's primary concern and duty is towards his people. If the king doesn't hold himself accountable or if he doesn't hold himself to a certain standards, then how can his subjects aspire to be any better? Right? The top down approach where duty and accountability lay with the king. This is such an Indian thing. So it made me understand the motivations of Damon better. I liked the moral and ethical dilemmas portrayed in the story. The third thing that I enjoyed were the cultural references. I enjoyed the cultural tidbits that the author inserted in the story. Supposedly, Achilles, Damon's country, is inspired by ancient Greece, and where Lauren's country has been inspired by the 14th or 15th century France. I have no idea of either of these cultures, but I did notice the reference of fair and brown skin the constant usage of the words barbaric, savage, etc. with respect to the Aquiloan people. This book was an ugly reminder of the colonial stink that we as Indians had to bear. I also enjoyed that there is a mention of matriarchal culture in this book. Though they only play a very small role in this book, I really enjoyed it, and their part was honestly very refreshing. Then the fourth point, romance. Okay, what can I even tell you about the romance? It honestly is one of my favorite romances, or one true pairs of all time. It's such a slow burn romance, spoiler alert, which is my kind of romance. It's such a slow burn romance that you don't see any hint of romance blossoming between Damon and Lauren till the second part of the second book in the series. So it's that kind of a slow burn romance. I know it might not sound ideal, but trust me, it's perfect. By the time Damon and Lauren realize their feelings for each other, we as readers are solidly on their side and probably obsessing over them from the sidelines. The fifth thing is Lauren's brain. Now, I know it is weird that I'm including this as a point that I liked, but if Lauren's intelligence was not a part of this novel, I would never have loved the series as much as I do. Lauren's brain, his intelligence, his charisma plays a huge role in this story, and I absolutely loved it. Many people tag this series under romance, but for me, this was more a story about political strategy and ambitions than romance. Then some people also tag it under erotica. I feel that's just not appropriate at all, because I have read contemporary romances that are far more erotic than this series was. The genius of the author is in the way she fleshed out the character of Lauren. In the first book, he's a ridiculously smart, handsome, but cruel prince whose motivations are completely hidden. By the second book, though we can partially guess the motivations that drive him, his resultant actions were surprising as ever. In the third book, his actions are still as unpredictable as ever, which kept me on the edge of my seat. I loved that about the series, how Laurent's actions were always unpredictable. You have to keep guessing what he might do. I think he would do this. I think he would do that. That was amazing. While Damon is a very vanilla, straightforward, predictable character, Lauren was just the opposite. And I absolutely loved it, okay? Because this Lauren is a blue-eyed, blonde, fair guy, but his motivations, his actions are all in the gray area. Whereas Damon is a dark hunk, but he's such a sweetheart. He's so sweet, and he's very predictable. But Lauren is not like that. He's just the opposite. And I loved the characterization of these people, and I think I will never stop gushing about them. So now that you know, I cannot stop gushing about these characters at all. Let's now move on to the parts that I didn't like in this series. So one is definitely Damon's character arc. While Lauren is the popular choice for favorite character all around, Damon is my favorite hero of the story, mainly because of his moral fiber. Also because the author gave him the king-like aura despite him being thrown in a situation of a sexual slave. But I disliked his character arc because he at times came across as very naive. As a prince, naivety might be excused, but as a king, naivety is a very serious problem. It can cost lives. My major complaint was the way Damon was incapable of figuring out the plots and schemes of the antagonist. While Damon's skills were very good, like strategy, tactics, fighting, etc., were very good, his political acumen, I found it to be very lacking. Also, he was a very poor judge of character. A king should be a good judge of characters as well as situations. Now, if you are unable to judge a character, judge a situation, how are you going to give justice to the people? I wanted Damon to grow the way Lauren grows throughout the series. From the beginning till the end, you see such a change in Lauren. But Damon, he doesn't change at all. So, yeah, I found Damon's character arc to be a little lacking in this particular series. The second thing is the lack of female characters. There was absolutely no female representation. And something niggled at me throughout the series. And then it flashed. This is a gay story about princes with sexual slaves, and all of them are men. Where are the women? And not even the one or two or three women that we see in the series, they were not very memorable. Yes, I did tell you about the matriarchal culture that is being mentioned in the series, but as I said, they're not very memorable. They were refreshing, and I would have loved to read more about them, but really there was nothing, no women in this story that were memorable or who you root for. Now let me put out a disclaimer saying that I haven't read the novellas or short story collections that are part of this series, hence I'm not sure if there are more women characters in them or not, but this particular trilogy definitely lacks female representation, and that was a small complaint from my side. Okay, so now on to some random spoilery opinions. I cannot talk about a few things without spoiling the story for you, so if you like, you can skip this section and go directly to the end. I have given the relevant timestamps in the description box down below. Let me start with the spoilery parts of this series and my review. So Laurent and his uncle's abuse. The author gave us hints in the first book itself, and in my opinion, that particular part was dragged out a bit too much. Also, how Damon could not guess Laurent's situation is beyond me. I mean, I rest my case on Damon's general lack of judgment. Also, can we all talk about the reveal in third book that Laurent always knew who Damon was? I lost it. I legit lost it. I mean, seeing Laurent's brilliance, I did wonder in the first book. Did he really not recognize Damon? Did he really not know Damon was his brother's killer? Is he pretending to not know about Damon, or did he know? Especially after the whipping incident, the way he almost killed Damon, I thought he definitely knows who Damon is. But then I don't remember, maybe in the first or second book, the author clarifies that Lauren was very young. He was only 13 years old. He was not in the war zone. He couldn't have seen Damon at all. So it was logical for Lauren not to identify Damon. So that thought had left my mind, and I stopped guessing if Lauren knew Damon or not. But when the reveal happened, ooh, it opened such possibilities that made their love story even more angsty, even more taboo, more everything. Now I want a book from Lauren's perspective. Once I got to know that Lauren knew who Damon was from the beginning, I mean, I got to know it in the end of the third book, and now I want to go back to the first book and see all those signs. And I want to know what Lauren's thought is. So I wanted Lauren's point of view book like yesterday. Guys, if you have read it, then can you please let me know if you too are as eager as me for Lauren's point of view story? If you are, then please let me know in the comment section. But please do mention that you are talking about spoilers so that other people don't get spoiled, because I swear we must read this book to get this amazing reveal. I don't want anybody else to be spoiled about this. So if you have any thoughts about this reveal, about putting our demand of Lauren's point of view book into the universe, then please do let me know in the comment section. But please mention that it is spoilery so that other people do not get spoiled. Also, who else wants this series to be adapted into a movie or series? I definitely do. I do understand that maybe it will not be very feasible to have it as a series because, as I said, only Damon and Lauren are the main characters in the story. They are the drivers of the story. So maybe other characters won't get as much scope for acting as Damon and Lauren can. Also, the lack of women characters and general action might not make for a good series, but movie, I think that might be good, right? Put it out into the universe so that we get a Captive Prince movie. So this is the end of my spoilery section. This was my review about the Captive Prince trilogy. I usually have two kinds of reviews. One is an objective review and another is a subjective review. If you want to know more about how I review my books, then I have given the link for that particular video in the description box below, so you can check that out. Objective review. I do my objective review based on certain parameters. Plot for this particular series, I give 5 out of 5. Pacing, I give it 4 out of 5 because it does get a bit slow in the second book. Then characters, I am giving 4 out of 5 because I'm docking a point for the lack of women character and general variety. Then for setup, I'm giving 4.5 out of 5. I'm not sure why I'm not giving a 5 out of 5, but I found something to be lacking in the setup, though I cannot put my finger on it. Then writing, obviously 5 out of 5. So overall rating is 4.5. If I could describe each book in this series in one sentence, what would it be? So Captive Prince, I would describe it as captivates the reader like no other. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And then The Princess Gambit, I gave it 4 stars. I would describe it as burns slowly but surely. Then King's Rise, I gave it 3.5 or average it to 4 stars. Again, it can be described as reckoning and victory. So overall series, I gave it 4.5 stars. So my objective rating will be that it is an invest grade book, which means it is worth investing in this book and adding it to your personal collection. Now, subjective rating overall for this series, I gave it 4 stars. And that's a wrap on the Captive Prince trilogy review, guys. I hope you guys liked it. Are you guys planning on reading it? Have you already read it? Please do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I post contents on reading challenges, book reviews, book tags, and recommendations every single week. If bookish content like mine is your jam, then please do consider liking my videos, subscribing to my channel, and yes, please don't forget to press the bell icon for notifications. Looking forward to sharing more of my bookish thoughts with you. All of my socials are given in the description box down below. Let's keep the bookish conversation going. Until then, stay safe and healthy.